Good morning, everyone. This is UXE review for 17th of March. Today, the main thing we're going to demos. Tim's going to take us through some of the work he's been doing. We call this project called Layouts. It's a bit of a work in progress. I'll just hand it over to you, Tim.
Okay, cool. Thank you. So up on screen here, I've got a layout where most people will be reasonably familiar with. It's we have a kind of toolbar section at the top here, which you can see, which is the search filter button, yours first button, which is actually sorting, but we don't have an icon for sorting, so that's why it's a truck. And then we've got some content blocks here, so I'm just detailing just some rubbish content. And what we're looking at here is specifically how do we produce, I guess, this kind of layout for a variety of applications. It's reasonably frequently used, and I took some of our future forward-facing design that we're looking at, and I implemented it Zui one-to-one. So what's up on screen here is out of the box that Zui provides today, and I'll show some new stuff very shortly. But the first thing I'll show you is how well this thing works responsively. So first sort of breakpoint, you'll notice the margins have gone on the left and right hand side of the panel, and it sits up against the width of the container. Just do this so that you can't see the code. And then as we shrink down, the search and white space sort of shrinks, and we get to a point where when we get small enough, things start to break. You see, for the most part it works reasonably well responsively down to small widths. So that's Zui out of the box. That's without me doing anything. The next one I'll show you is Zui with some sprinkles. So this is, I've added a couple of extra features here, which are the pills. I apologize if you can't see that on the Hangout very well. The contrast isn't so good. So again, this is mostly Zui out of the box. I haven't done too much to this one, but what we can see is when we get down to smaller breakpoints, I've removed the borders on the panel, and we now also have zero margins here as well. And essentially, a lot of that's just been achieved just instead of using one particular Zui class, I modified it slightly to change depending on my own custom viewpoint. And then we go down a bit further, we can see some more changes here. So you'll notice the ordering of these components. The pills are now last. The buttons are now just icon buttons, just regular icon buttons. And I keep going further, and the content blocks are the same as they were before, which is quite nice. We don't have to do much with content blocks. They do work out of the box. And so what I did to achieve that was basically I had two components for the buttons, one shown on small, one's shown on large. And the ordering is achieved through, again a custom class which I created. And that applies just a different flex order to the pills depending on the size of the viewport. What's important about that particular thing for me is the breakpoint that I used to achieve this was completely subjective, and by that I mean I looked at how big the search box was, decided I don't feel good about it being any smaller than that, and then added a breakpoint at that point. So that's the first sort of thing that was highlighted to me. That is something that we will need to consider when we bring this into Zui properly, and how we go about exposing that, making that available for people to use. The next one I'll show you, I'll go back to full screen again, is the forward-facing version. So this is the closest I could get to Gareth's longer-term vision. You'll notice the search box border has gone. We do support that in Zui today, but it just looks better now in this case, given we have a full white screen background, which we don't currently support.
Better is subjective for people on the call, because
Yeah, well, that's true. That is true. So that's a Hangouts contrast.
Yeah, exactly, contrast.
Again, we have similar experience where we don't want the search box to go too small, and then we've got a different breakpoint here with those buttons on the right-hand side. And so the other thing that is a little bit hard to see, and maybe I'll go slowly, is I do have some I don't know if you call it responsive padding, but it's more like the import-based padding on the content blocks, which is also new. So if I change breakpoints at certain spaces, you'll notice the padding between the text and the lines changes. And again, that's completely subjective based on the screen that's likely to be viewed, or the size of the screen that's likely to be viewed. But a talking point for sure in terms of how we'd like to support that in XUI at a library level. And the other thing I've done with the content blocks here is added a forward and start line. So, again, something to talk about. So that's for the most part the CSS out of the box. For the listing page, this particular view, so the toolbar and the content blocks and how they respond. The reason why I haven't gone to too much detail on the content blocks is because we do mostly support out of the box a lot of the Flex framework, a lot of Flex classes for doing layouts here. So most of the pages I've seen have typically had an avatar, some text like it's displayed on the screen, and then a couple of things on the right-hand side. So we do support that out of the box already, so I haven't really focused too much on that. The last thing I'll show you a couple more things. So I have an interactive demo here, which I built in React, and this is just so we can showcase what it would feel like. So if I start typing, I can see that the text is full text search, and I can also add filters. So if I go unbuild or last 7 days, and then start shrinking, we can see that still works well out of the box. I'll just get rid of that and show you the consolidated. So, and this is actually being built using just a couple of new components that I made for the listing page, specifically for the toolbar and specifically for rendering the view. But they're free. They're kind of skeletons in the way that I don't care what one of your list items looks like, and I don't care what filter options or sort options you have. You can actually provide that to the system and it works. Of course, sorting works, so you can change the view here as well. So we've got grouped views. And this whole exercise was quite interesting because I was exploring the pattern around not having to care what the views are, but did care that we did have a couple of states. So sorting state where you've got grouped by certain properties on objects or not. And also exploring potentially how you can change the templates as well. So there's actually quite a bit of information there in the component stuff that I've built, and I think it'll be really good at some point to review those component ideas and with the team at least, and going forward from there. And the last one I'll show you is the staff page that I made. Now this is taking a dump of test data from the live site, and pretty much looks almost exactly the same to the live site. I don't have that open for you right now, but take my word for it. But it still works the same way, so I can still type in things. It still works. I can still filter by various types of people, and I can sort by roles, admin, consultant, master admin, and so these are the filtering and sorting here in particular are the same features that we provide on the current live page, but the layout's obviously different. So the current live page,
HQ production.
Yeah, the current HQ production has a toolbar on the left-hand side with the filter options, whereas this exposes it by drop-down menus at the top. Great thing about that is fully responsive. So, but that's using the React component we've already got out of the box. I haven't done anything to make that work that way. The only thing I've done in this case was literally provide a data set, provide the list of filter options and how I want it filtered, how I want the data set filtered, and the system worked out of the box. So there's plenty of stuff to talk about here in terms of both how it looks, how it feels responsively, and both technically in terms of implementation. And so that's the result of my exploration so far.
Cool. Looks awesome. I've got a couple of points I'll talk to. Gareth, if you want to chime in at any time, that's cool. We've always talked about doing these core layouts, and we've kind of never done them any justice. So Tim's work's been really good because it's taken a HTML prototype that the design team did, and we've thought about, okay, how are we actually going to start transitioning this into an application? So that's what we've been seeing with the interactive demo and the HP demo. We're actually composing this with mostly XUI components and getting some interactiveness to it. And we've got some, I see three options where we could take this now. We could really push down the technical path and try and build like a boilerplate or something that can cut and copy a set of really reusable components that produce this view, and think hard about how we abstract out things like sorting and filtering so custom functions can be passed in within some constraints. And that's sort of like, that would be something we'd deliver to product teams that they could actually start building these with. That kind of seems, we might be a little bit too soon to do anything like that. The two other things that I see that I want to explore with this is so Tim's early demo showed it with the XUI CSS without any overrides. We kind of, if Tim's been demoing a future state of the UI, we need to figure out how we can produce this pattern, but also produce like an upgrade path, so use it to inform how we're going to do a fully responsive layout that looks like this, that makes use of the filtering and sorting pattern that is designed to be responsive. And the other thing that I'm really keen to look at with this is throw as much real data into sort of the interactive style demos and see how far along we can get this, to see if it's going to suit our use cases for different scenarios, different listing pages that we have across our various apps. It's easy for us to keep building things, but what we need to make sure that we do is we have the design completely validated, and it's what we provide to product teams to build this actually aligns with the designs they've got and the user requirements they have. So after this, we're going to kind of talk more deeply about that, and that's so this is like the work in progress. Like technically, it seems pretty feasible. Mm-hmm. Now we want to make sure that we execute it correctly, so what we produce and give to teams matches the designer's expectations and helps the product teams.
Yeah, 100%.
Cool. Yeah, I'm good with that. Any other comments on this at the moment, Gary?
Not at this stage. I feel like there's a few sort of interaction things at this point that are worth ironing out around kind of the application of filters and what happens when they clear and things like that. So it's worth bearing in mind that there's a little bit of work to do there before we get to kind of deep in the trenches of things. But yeah, apart from that, it's great to see and know that kind of, that HTML kind of idea can translate really well into kind of the tech and into doing.
Yeah, so the audio is pretty horrific there, but I think one of the things you said is you had a little bit more to do with the interaction on that design side, and that's where I'm really keen to sort of like, let's use this for the next stage of that testing before we go down a fully kind of let's produce a React artifact that someone else can use sort of thing. And we just make sure that we do it in a sensible order, so we don't produce something that as a product of the UXE team we think is fantastic, but it's not ready to be used by anyone. So that's going to be exciting.
I do have one more comment to make before we close this one as well, and that's All the demos that I've shown here are mostly flat demos, completely client-side demos, hard-coded data, that kind of thing. What we haven't yet fully investigated is any of the async stories around this. So dealing with data on servers instead of on the client, or a mix of. So those are completely valid questions, especially when you're dealing with really large sets of data. People need to make that decision. So
yeah. Cool.
Yeah.
Wicked. Okay. So that concludes like the demo portion. So this, for viewers that get this far, is going to be the last recorded demo review day that we do as a team for a little while. It's not a zero effort to put these together and coordinate them. We've been together as a team this week, and what we want to improve the way we communicate out to product teams and make sure they're supported, and designers as well. So what we're going to trial starting next week will be just a regular Hangout review, still open to anybody that wants to come and attend, but it'll basically be at the allotted time, unrecorded, and then post-review we'll put out kind of a, I don't know yet, but it'll probably be an interesting summary of what we did that week. So for people that don't want to sit through a video or go and find it or whatever, we'll publish it, and you can see what the UXE team, platform development, have been up to. And yeah, it might be links to interactive demos or maybe even short videos if you're lucky, but we won't be doing these the same format. But that's cool, change is great. And with that, I think I'm ready to conclude the recorded part of the session. So thanks everyone for tuning in. See you some other time. Everyone's waiting.